It's week one. It's time to finally decide who we're putting in our lineups, who's sitting the bench for week one. Let's answer all those questions for you right now. All right, so with it being week one, yes, we have start-sit questions that we need to decide between, we need to go over, we need to go through. Now, a few things that I want to cover with this. One, at the end of the day, you have to make your own lineup decisions. You can be given every single tool, every single possibility in the world, and some of the best advice, but still, at the end of the day, there is nothing worse than only deciding to put a player in your starting lineup because someone else told you to when you thought the opposite, okay? Because if that player goes off, now you have that guy that you're like, it's his fault. If I would have just trusted my instincts, I would have won. Nothing worse than having someone else do it and ruin it for you. So at the end of the day, you have to make your own decisions. But there's some key things that we look for that maybe change a week-to-week starting lineup versus who would normally be in the starting lineup most weeks. So weather can play a factor, the defense that they're going up against, quarterback situation in that offense, all these different kinds of things and many more can be a big determining factor in who to start and who to sit in each week. So the biggest name that I was asked about this week is Rashee Rice. And it makes a lot of sense. It's one of the first games of the week. There's a lot of different options that you can put in there. And he's kind of one of these awkward in-between guys, and we're not quite sure where he fits in the offense. So getting to him specifically, and I'll get to this question too with Terry McLaurin versus Rashee Rice. But basically for me, Rice right now is my wide receiver 25. So that basically means I have him as that low end 2, high end number 3 type of wide receiver, which is a very good asset, but it's understandable why he would be one of the more difficult ones. 1, Travis Kelce's still there. 2, they just drafted Xavier Worthy. 3, with all of the things that happened in the offseason with him, people are a little more curious as to where to rank him and how to have him. I still think for this season, he's going to be a very, very good asset. Now, is he going to be elite? On certain weeks, but that's going to be the most tricky part about this offense is anybody could go off on any given week when Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. And then eventually we're going to be adding Hollywood Brown into this mix. So it is going to be a little muddied at times, trusting who to start week in, week out. So some guys that I was talked about or that were asked that I would rank a little bit ahead. One of them, Terry McLaurin or Rashee Rice. I have Terry McLaurin slightly ahead of Rice. Now, part of this is because looking at the defenses that they're going up against. Tampa Bay is going up against Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders this week. They were one of the worst defenses against the pass last year, 28th in the NFL. So there's really no big differences to their secondary, a little bit of a different nickelback, but other than that, it's basically the same unit that we had last year. Well, you look up Rashee Rice, they're going up against Baltimore, the 6th best against pass. So yeah, I would rather take Terry McLaurin. And when you look at the floor versus the ceiling, the floor for Terry McLaurin is pretty safe. There's not a lot of players to throw the football to where there's a lot of players to throw the football to in Kansas City. So I would probably take him. But if you need a boom week, I can understand taking Rice against him or even some of these other guys. I'd still take Jaylen Waddle ahead of him. As one person asked, I would rather have Jaylen Waddle. But there's other guys that are pretty close, like George Pickens. George Pickens versus Rice, that's a perfect floor versus ceiling. Do I think George Pickens is going to have a huge ceiling game here? Probably not. But his floor is going to be pretty safe. Whereas Rice could have a huge game, but his floor is very, very low. So what do you need? Do you need a floor game? Do you need a ceiling game? Are you projected to win by quite a bit? You probably just need a floor game. If you are looking at a team that's really good, maybe you need a ceiling game, and Rice might be the slightly better play. All right, let's go to this next one here. Lamar Jackson for CJ Stroud. I am still going with Lamar Jackson here. Now, when you look at, he played Kansas City, sure, they're a good pass defense, but let's look at what Lamar Jackson did against them last year. Last year in the playoffs, 272 yards, a passing touchdown, and an additional 54 yards. You look at Indianapolis, they're going up against the Houston Texans. There's a lot of new pieces in this offense, specifically Stephon Diggs, that they're going to have to try to figure out what's going on with him. And you have Joe Mixon in the backfield that they're going to want to get involved pretty quickly. Indianapolis, middle of the road defense. And so I don't expect this to be a huge game, especially when you play a division opponent that's solid, they tend to know some of your ins and your outs. So I think this is a game where I would still rather stick with Lamar Jackson and that rushing upside that he has over a CJ Stroud in week 1. Let's get to the last one we're going to talk about here. Nabers, Aaron Jones, or Javonte Williams in my flex. PPR, I'm most likely going Nabers. Made a huge trade to move up 2nd overall to get him. I agree, Sean. I am going with Nabers here. Nabers, the target volume on this team. We just talked about Terry McLaurin with the target volume. Same type of thing in New York. There is nobody else that I am confident that can consistently get passes. Now, what do you want from your young, exciting rookie in week 1? You want him to feel comfortable quickly. So they're going to diagram some plays. They're going to get the ball in his hands as quick as he can. So the quicker he can get comfortable in these NFL offenses and against these NFL defenses, the better. So I expect them to give him a ton of work in week 1. And that's nothing against Aaron Jones. It's nothing against Javonte Williams, who I'm a big fan of. But Malik Nabers, the amount of volume he should get in week 1 should propel him above both of these running backs. So guys, congratulations on making it all the way here to week 1. Go ahead and post some of your start sits in the comments here. And I'm going to do my best to get to as many of those as I can as well.